Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey. It is season 3, episode 7 of Sipping Tea with Stacey T. And you may have noticed that I already had a link up for this episode, but it would not work. It was just hitting the live button and it was swirling and swirling and swirling with no connection. And I tried to troubleshoot it on my end, but it did not work. So here we are. Here we are after going through a lot of different methods to get here today, but we're here. Hopefully you will find me. It is under the same name. I haven't updated that it's called Fragments, but I will do that later. That is what we're talking about today. Just to be honest, your girl's feeling a little fragmented. I'm going to be entirely honest. Feeling a little fragmented right now, but we're going to get through it because I think that when so many things go in a position or in a way that makes it feel chaotic, sometimes there is indeed a reason for that feeling of utter and complete chaos. So, with that being said, how are you doing? Hopefully, everything is going well. Hopefully, you and your family are well. Hopefully, you're enjoying a nice day. I'm not sure where you are. It's supposed to be beautiful out for the next couple of days. It was really, really nice out yesterday. I got to step out a few times. Good afternoon. You know, it wouldn't be sipping tea with Stacey T without a little razzle dazzle. So we got a little razzle, a little bit more razzle and dazzle than I would like, but we're here and we're going to be talking about fragments. But before we do that, we're going to be talking about the tea. So fortunate enough that I had someone that was very caring get me a new tea to try. Now it's a little early in the season, but you know what? We're not conventional. So today we're going to have Bigelow's pumpkin spice black tea. I like some things that are pumpkin spice. So let me be clear. Not everything that's pumpkin spice I like, but we're going to try this. We're going to see what it is. I know that people go nuts. I would say the next couple of weeks, everything pumpkin spice is going to be everywhere anyways. And I've already been seeing people talk about it. Oh my gosh, I can't wait for my pumpkin spice latte and so on and so forth. So in any event, this is what the tea bag looks like. Bigelow's pumpkin spice black tea. It says hearty spiced tea. So I don't know what you mean by that, Bigelow, but we're going to test it out. You know what I do, y'all. If you haven't been here before, the first thing I do is I smell the tea. And I can just tell you by opening the tea bag, it's a pre-fall treat. Woo! Wow. That was, wow. That was like overwhelming. I mean, I literally just ripped open the pack. Yo, I feel like is this pumpkin? So this has pumpkin spice, but it almost smells like what pumpkin pie would smell like. And the reason why I'm saying it smells different, you know how like in pumpkin pie you put molasses in it? I literally feel like I'm smelling molasses in this tea bag. Maybe I'm wrong. Now I feel I have to read. Let me see if they say what some of their ingredients are. I don't know if they will. It doesn't. It just says taste the flavor of the season. We love autumn, crisp air, glowing sunsets, warm fires, and cozy gatherings. The Bigelow family, Bigelow, if you're watching, is there some molasses in this? I need to know. Let me know. Let me know. And I do love Bigelow tea, so I already have some honey in the cup. I'm going to steep it. So literally, it got dark really, really quickly. So for those of you who like, a tea that gives you some color, because you know how sometimes you get it and it feels like you're drinking a blonde tea. This is not that. I would tip it over, but I'm not trying to spill this all over my laptops. So we've had enough excitement for the morning, so we're not going to do that. But again, hopefully everybody is doing well. Everybody is enjoying their weekend, has some plans to enjoy, whatever it is that you like to do to unwind. I know for some people you do work on the weekends. And I also want to say, and I said this at the end of my last episode, So many people have said to me, Stacey, I love the episode I watched and you talked about XYZ. So I know you're actually watching, but can you tell your girl? Can you leave a note? Can you subscribe to the channel? Share it on your page. There are going to be some people that may really like what it is that we discuss. So I would love if you would share it so that people know. People know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for a long time now. Excuse me, for a year and a half. A year and a half I've been doing sipping tea because I started February of last year. And now we're in August of 2026. So it's been a full year and a half that I've been doing this. And I would love for the numbers to grow. I would love for the numbers to grow in a way that it's reaching, the outreach has gotten a little further. But that being said, I'm also going to take that as a thing that I'm going to be doing in the next couple of days, is really trying to push it out and rebrand it. I'm also considering some type of a fourth season relaunch. So I haven't really fully thought about what that would look like, but I think that I would start that off with an event. So for those of you who have been kind of listening to me talk about the idea of having an event at some point, that may be the thing that I do to relaunch. So keep in mind and pay attention for that. All right. So with that being said, today I'm going to talk about fragments. And I know last week, for those of you who tuned in last week, I spoke about brokenness. And I know that sometimes people might be thinking, well, isn't that the same thing? I do believe that they flow together nicely, but I do think that there is a bit of a difference. Just like, and again, these are just my thoughts. I can't really subscribe. I'm not Webster's dictionary. So I'm not going to go into like, oh, well, you're just trying to mince words or whatever. Just like some people will say faith and trust are the same thing, I don't think that they're the same thing. I think that faith is like believing in things that you don't see. Like, God, I don't know you like that, but let me see what you're going to do. That's kind of what I look at faith as. Trust is, I know you, God. You've proven who you are. You've shown me who you are. Because you have, I trust you. Because only trust is only found in the nature of a relationship. Right. So again, those are my definitions. The same thing is held true of this. I talked a lot about brokenness last week, and I think that the reason why I needed to discuss that is because I've been going through my own diamond season, in which, cutting and removing things and things feeling like they're breaking, and the heaviness and God having to shed and break that off of me because it was really trying to connect itself or attach itself or something like that. And that was really, really challenging for me because I'm trying to show up for people. I'm trying to do the things that I need to do. But when you feel this kind of sense of, it's kind of like a brunch event. When you feel like this kind of sense of heaviness over you, it can get a little overwhelming, right? It can get a bit overwhelming. And I'm not a person, and this is something I'm trying to work toward, but I'm going to be entirely honest. When you're on your healing journey, there are some things that you are still healing, y'all. There's still things that you have to work on. And one of the things that I really still have a hard time with is asking people for help, because I don't like to be a burden. I definitely don't like for people to throw the help that they've offered in my face. Like all the things, right? Things that we've probably all been through when we've helped somebody and then they like have to mention it. They want to get on the mic. Remember when I gave you that thing? Or remember when I paid that bill for you? And you're like, for real? Like that's what we're going to do. So I have a hard time with that. So God is trying to help me to get over that, because it's pride, and pride cometh before the fall. And I'm not trying to fall, y'all. So there's all that. But that being said, I talked a lot about how when we see ourselves as broken, it becomes problematic because we're not able to see that even in the midst of that thing, God is still doing work, right? What we see is the brokenness. And I was speaking about the concept of that this week. And it was interesting that for me, the concept of that came up multiple times in a variety of different ways throughout this week. And I was talking about sometimes, specifically when we get to a moment where we might trip and we might have had a glass in our hand, the glass goes flying and now there's glass everywhere, and you get the big pieces, right? Because you can visually see those, but there's always those slivers, right? There's always those little tiny shards that they go everywhere, and those things can still cause ruckus, right? They can still pierce flesh, they can still cause you pain and all the things. So most people will sweep up the big pieces, or grab the big pieces and put them in the trash, and then take a damp paper towel and kind of tap where you think that the shards may have gone, and try to get those under control, right? However, sometimes you miss the piece, and sometimes the effect or the impact does happen, and there's nothing that you can technically do about it, because it is what it is already. What I want us to do is I want us to think about the fragment, right? I want us to not just think about the brokenness in general, because the brokenness is the action, right? The action of something falling apart, the act of something not being whole as it once was, or not having the same shape or form or even usability that it used to have. But we don't often think about the fragment in itself, that one piece, that one shard, because what we do is we just take all the stuff and we sweep it and we dump it. And I spoke about the last time that God will take all those broken pieces and redesign them, right? Reconfigure them, because he's that kind of God and he can do that kind of thing. But we don't necessarily think about the fragments. But before I talk about the typical fragments that I just mentioned, I do want to mention one thing. So on TikTok, for those of you who have been on the platform, when you're a live host, like I'm right now speaking to you, one of the things that you're doing is, you're talking to people, and people, if they, support you or they want to love on you in that particular way, they will do what's called gifting, right? And so as they're gifting, they're sending you things, and you can see how much people are sending you. You can see how it impacts you. And what I mean by impacts you is that the goal on TikTok is to secure a certain amount of diamonds. And as you secure diamonds, that is how you can be compensated, right? However, how the diamonds are formed is by fragments. So you have a certain amount of fragments that you get, and then you move up a level. But that also means you have to hold on to that fragment. And if you don't get enough diamonds, then you lose a fragment, right? So that means you can be blessed if you get more, but what happens when you lose? What happens when the support wanes? What happens when things don't pan out the way that you want to? Now you've lost the fragment. And what does that mean for you? That means that you're not secured. That means you have dropped down. That means your ability to be compensated has decreased. So there's real life impacts of this fragment. Hold on to that, okay? Y'all know I'm gonna have to go onto my phone because I'm using my computer. So typically when I'm on there, so this is something that potentially I'm gonna probably need to get another device so that I can so that I can do this well and not have to have you all waiting on me trying to scroll through things, right? All right. While I'm doing that, while this is reconfiguring, let me taste this before it gets too dark, to be honest with you, because I'm not a huge dark tea drinker. So I'm smelling it again. So the reason why you're probably seeing me look at it so to me, and again, maybe this is just my palate, but it tastes like chai tea now. So it did say it's a spiced tea. I love chai. I'm tasting a hint of the pumpkin, but it more so tastes like, I guess, like a chai tea with like a little pumpkin essence, if you would. So I'm curious if that was the goal. That's not bad at all, because y'all know chai tea is actually one of my favorite teas. So good job, Bigelow. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Absolutely. All right. So a couple of things. Y'all know I had to take off my glasses to read my phone. The struggle is real, y'all. You know. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to start off by saying is for me, again, the difference between brokenness and fragments. Brokenness is about a condition, and fragments are about what remains, right? So brokenness is the idea, I dropped the glass, everything's everywhere, but what remains are those fragments. So we say I'm broken, right? Which means I'm, like without repair, I'm damaged, I'm whatever, I can't be used, I don't have value, my value has decreased. But the fragments actually are telling a different story. They're like, wait a minute. I still remained after all the things that I had been through. I'm still here after being broken. I'm still here after being disregarded. I'm still here after being minimized or talked about or any of the things. I still stood in this place. I didn't dissolve. I didn't disintegrate. I'm still here in the midst of that. And I think that sometimes we need to remember the fragment, right? We need to remember that, yes, maybe you've been through a thing. Maybe you've been through so many things that have tested you and have tried you and have hurt you and have diminished you and have dismissed your ideas and have told you that you don't have value and you're not enough and you don't belong in the spaces that you've tried to enter into. But the reality of it is you still exist. You still have power. You still have authority. Yes, you may have a little bruises. You may have a couple of scars. That's that happens. But what that does is that also is a testimony that you survived. So the fragment, if we start looking at it differently, the fragment is a survivor. That's what it is. And that's what you are. When you go back, and the thing about healing that is so incredibly amazing is you go back and yes, you look at your trauma and you look at your triggers, but then you look in the mirror and you say, I made it through those things. Those things did not bring it unto death for me. I'm still here. I still have value. I still have things to share. I can still encourage. I can still instill hope. I can still tell people that they can make it. I can still make it for myself. I still have dreams yet to accomplish and purpose to fulfill. But sometimes people will have you just look at the fragment. Oh, look at you. You had an impact when you were the vase, but now that you've been dropped and now you're a shard, you don't have value. But guess what? That shard still sparkles. If you've ever stepped on a shard of glass, you know it's still cut, so it still has power, right? It still has impact. It still leaves a lingering thought in your mind. And it's a shard. Yes, it may be smaller. Yes, it may not have the initial goal that it was to have when it was part of the vase, but it does not diminish that it still is here. And for those of you who have survived a lot of things, many of you have survived things like emotional, physical, sexual abuse, right? You're still here. You survived the thing that was meant to break your spirit, was meant to diminish you, was meant to make you feel crazy, was meant to make you feel like you had nothing that you offered the world, was made to feel like it was your fault, that you asked for these things, for people to treat you like dirt and to dismiss you. But I'm here to tell you that the fragment that you are survived because God still knows and sees your purpose and value. And it's very easy for us to just think about the broken piece, to just think about the fact that we're now disconnected. Oh my God. All right. So I wrote, a fragment is a piece that remains after something has been shattered. It may not look like the original, but it is evidence that something survived. Sometimes healing isn't God putting you back together as you were. And I need for us to sit in that. Oh, well, I can't do this because I'm not that. And I can't do this because, I was supposed to be doing this and I didn't do it and it didn't work out and da 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 da. Y'all, we can make all the reasons and all the logistical excuses, and some of them are entirely valid. In this moment in time, as you are in this space, God can and will still use you if you continue to say yes, even as you are. Yes, your life may be different than you intended. I can be a testifier to that. I never thought that this is what my life would be at this age, right? Never. But I do know that God is still on the throne. I know that God is still working in and through and with me, right? I know that for a fact. So yes, I may be the fragment. I may be the shard. I may no longer be attached to the thing that I thought would, or the things that I thought made me who I am. But the thing is, those were the thoughts I had about who I am. God knows who I am. Before I was in my mother's womb, He knew me. He knew you. Before all that, before you were ever blinked, before you ever breathed, before you were ever even a pea-sized zygote or any of the things, right? Before you were in there as a fetus, God knew you. And he called you. So that doesn't change if you trip over a log. You know how people are always running in those horror movies or in those Lifetime movies? They're always forever running and then looking backwards over their shoulder and then they face plant. Even if you do that every single solitary day, God still can and will and does use you. Even the fragment, even the smallest piece, you feel like life has beat you up and continue to chip away and chip away and chip away at you and your value. But God sees your highest value. When he went to Calvary, he wasn't like, okay, I'm going to pick this one because she's never going to mess up. She's never going to make a misstep. She's never going to go into a position where this, this thing is different. She's going to always do the right thing. No. Ma'am and sir, he knew who you were. He knew that you were going to have moments of misstep. He knew that you were going to have moments where you even denied him. He told his daggone disciple, you're going to deny me. No, God, no, Jesus, I would never. I would never. And then he did 3 times in a row, y'all. Right? So even then, God still wasn't like, you know what, God, Jesus wasn't like, you know what, God, I opt out. I'm going to go back to heaven. You do what you want to do with these people because they just wicked and I'm over it. He could have just literally been on the cross and said, I smite this one and this one, take that one. This one doesn't deserve to be alive. But God sat there and took it because of the fragment that you would be today. But I want you to know there's wholeness in the fragment. Just because you're disconnected from what you originally thought you were supposed to be a part of doesn't mean you're not whole within yourself. It doesn't mean God doesn't restore you to you and what you're supposed to be doing. But what you're supposed to be doing doesn't mean it was attached to or connected to or only able to be executed because you were part of the vase. The piece that you are now still has purpose. The piece that you are now still can be whole and still does deserve and has ability to reach out to and get and gain restoration in Jesus. That is still what God can do because he can do everything except for fail. Y'all, if this ain't good to y'all, it's good to me. That's what I will tell you. It's good to me. Oftentimes, and I talked about last week, all the ways that brokenness and things that are broken and us changing our perspective on brokenness. And I brought up the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and how those were continually broken, right? The act of breaking continued to happen and fed the multitudes. And I talked about the broken body of Christ being the best example of how brokenness still brings restoration, right? That's the biggest example of that. So what does that tell you? There's power in a fragment. There's power still in and invested in what has been separated or what has been changed or what looks different than it used to look. But what I don't want you to do is this. Because what we tend to do, maybe it's just me, but what I have done before is looked at the areas where I fall short and I will sit in those things. So, I used to be really confident and I only have fragments of that. Or I used to be able to trust people, but because I was betrayed, I only have fragments of trust. Or I used to believe in relationships and have healthy relationships, but now I only have fragments of those. Or I used to dream, I used to believe that God could do and would do all these things. And I, get married in a castle and all. But now, you know what? Life has taught me that those dreams were maybe silly because, really, is that going to happen for you? Right. So again, fragments of the ability to believe in the dream. And I used to believe in my identity and, oh, Stacey, you have this job and this title and you're this to this person. And that's all of your identity. And as those things were stripped, a lot of those things were stripped last year. Then guess what? I felt like a fragment of myself because my identity was not what it used to be. It wasn't part of the whole anymore. Now it's separated. I used to have, excuse me, and I've talked about this before. when my relationship went kind of crazy and then it ended up how it ended up, I remember saying to God, like, I feel like you allowed this to happen. So even sometimes when you go through a thing and you get mad at God, I know people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's talking about that. You're not supposed to get mad at God. Ma'am and sir, that's fine for you. If you don't, then cool for you. But me over here, I've 100% have had conversations, or as I call them, chit chats with God about how I was not happy about the current state of affairs, right? And so what that does is that tells me, yes, even in spite of me knowing God, me having served God, sometimes you feel like your faith is hanging by that shard, that little tiny fragment, okay? But that doesn't mean that there's not still power in that shard. Because what does God say? All you need is faith the size of a mustard seed. And if y'all have never seen a mustard seed, I had not actually. I actually purchased a packet a while back of mustard seeds because I'd never seen one. And I was like, this thing is real, real tiny. Of all the seeds, it's real tiny. So if he's saying that with a faith that size, I can move a mountain through him, okay, that means a fragment can do a thing, right? That means a fragment can do a thing. And sometimes we need to remember that. You have still yet to see one. They're so tiny. So tiny. I'm trying to think of something that even relates in size. I was actually surprised by how small that they actually were. What I want you guys to remember is that, I'm sorry, hold on one second. What I want you to remember is that if you are in the space right now that you feel like life has been breaking you up a little bit, right? You felt a little heavy. You felt a lot of disappointment. You've been managing, things that haven't been going right. And you're like, God, why? What is going on in the season? And why am I going through so many things? Why are the people that I love and I care for going through thing after thing? Why is there so much sickness? Why is there so much pain? Why is there so much depression? Why is there so much devastation? Why are there so many relationships in total and utter chaos? God, we're trying to do the thing that you're asking. We're trying to function in obedience, but yet and still, again, maybe this is just me, y'all, but it feels like as I'm sitting in the season, I'm like, my God, like, God, you're going to give us a hint about what this is? Because it is hard. And I feel like life's pressures are like, if you've ever seen, if you've ever seen, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie, but I think it was The Day After Tomorrow. And there's a scene in that movie where the father's trying to get to his son that's in New York because there's a blizzard that's coming, right? And they're going, he's with a team of a few other people, and they're going and going and going. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, wait a minute, I think we're above the mall. But the weight of them and the weight of the snow and the weight of their equipment all of a sudden puts a crack in the glass that's on the top of the roof, because they're climbing on the roof. There's that much snow. They're on the roof of a mall. And all of a sudden, the cracks start to spider. They start to spider, right? I don't know if anybody has ever felt like that the weight of your situation, it just feels so heavy and you're starting to crack. And you're like, God, I don't want my mind to fracture. I don't want my spirit to fracture. I don't want my energy to wane for you. I don't want my desire and hunger to go anywhere. I don't want my faith to be splintered. God, you have to help me through this season, because in this season, I have been broken. I'm a fragment now. And I know even in the fragment, there's power, but I'm going to be honest, because I'm feeling a little splintered. Right? I know that you told me who I am. I know who my identity is in you, but I'm going to be honest, God, because in this season, as I'm trying to reach out for you, I feel like my equipment behind me, life, right? All the things that I'm carrying is so heavy that it's splintering me. It's splintering me. I don't know. Again, if anybody's ever felt like that, put it, yes, I understand, or yes, that's me, or I've been there, in the chat. 2 Corinthians 4:7 says, but we have treasure in earthen vessels. Why were we talking about this? One of the hardest parts of healing is believing that you have to become completely whole before God can use you. Y'all, if we wait to be completely whole for God to use us, we are all in trouble. And so God's like, man, I ain't got nobody. I got like 5 people, maybe a good 5. And depending on the day, if somebody irks them, maybe I go down to 4. He knows who we are. He knows what we have what we're trying to manage. He knows what we're trying to be and how we're trying to live and the efforts that we put in and how we try to walk in obedience. But he also knows our demeanor, and he also knows our level of patience for one another. And he also knows how, or if we show compassion, or if we show up in grace for somebody, or if we even look at the mercy seat for somebody other than ourselves, right? He knows that about us. The scripture, excuse me, y'all, I have something in my throat. The scripture repeatedly shows us that God works through people who are still becoming. And I want us to understand becoming doesn't happen at a certain age. Like, man, you're supposed to become who you're going to be at like 25, and then you just continue to make it better. That sounds good, y'all. That sounds lovely. That's not realistic. The person that I am now in my late 40s is not the same person that I was in my 20s, right? I'm not. And thank God for that, right? But I'm not that same person. In some capacities, I'm like, my body was able to function with a lot less pain, that's for sure. So I take that part of it. But as far as like the way my mind processes things, my relationship with God, my level of seeing people, my level of functioning and compassion for people that I didn't have then. That's what life can do for you, right? That's how life can allow for you to see things different and function differently than you were before. But that happens even as you're a fragment, right? That doesn't happen despite you being a fragment. It happens even while, because you're always still becoming. You're becoming a stronger vessel for God. You're being a stronger person carrying purpose. You're a person that has encouraged people. You're a person that has stood in the gap. You're a person that has interceded, right, for others. Why do you do these things? Because you have grown through a season as a fragment that you recognize that other people are not surviving in the same way, that you may have already gone through that part of your season. And now you're like, wait a minute, let me reach back. Because I remember what it was like when I was going through my thing and it felt like no one cared. I remember what it felt like that people had abandoned me. I remember what it felt like to be entirely unsupported. I remember what that felt like. And because I have made my way through that season, I'm going to bless people to know that you can still make it. Now, y'all know, if you've been paying attention, that your girl's going to connect this to the diamond season. Because of course, right? A diamond is a thing that people talk often about, and depending on who you are, some people have really big reactions to diamonds, especially because some of them are unethically sourced and all the things, right? But I just want us to not think about the actual process of it. I just want us to think about what a diamond is, right? A diamond does not begin immediately with people admiring it. Right? If you were to see a diamond out of the ground, first of all, you might not even recognize that that's what it is. It's obviously a big rock. You're obviously going to see little points of shininess or inflection or whatever. It's very jagged. Typically, it's not like smooth as you see it now, right? So, and it's dirty because it's way out in a remote area, deep in the dirt or in caves or that type of thing. But it's out of the way. It's not in a place you're just going to walk up on it. Excuse me. The reason why people start to admire a diamond is when it gets fragmented. When it becomes a fragment. That's when people start admiring it. Right? Because at that point, it's undergone the pressure and the heat, which is the refinement, the cutting, and the overall transformation. It's been polished. All of those things. Hey, Kathy. All of those things have then happened in that season. So again, I'm going to repeat that. We're talking about fragments, and people look down on fragments as if they're nothing. Because brokenness seems to be something that happens sometimes without our choice, right? We don't choose to become broken. It happens to us. But when we think about ourselves as a diamond, right? We are made, and a diamond always has its value. But sometimes people don't see the value that you possess until you are broken, until you are now the fragment. And I can look at you and I can observe your brilliance. I can see, wow, there's a cut here and a cut here, and there's a plane here, and this is really polished, right? This is really shaped beautifully. I love this is a round cut. This is a princess cut. This is an emerald cut. This is a marquee cut. All the different ways that you may shine based on what God brought you through and how he continued to cut and shave pieces off of you. He continued to disconnect you from things and patterns and people that do not serve you well, that were literally trying to hold on to you as you elevated. But the fact of the matter is, God has to cut some things off because he wants to elevate you and he wants to bless you, but he doesn't want to bless the other people. Those other people aren't supposed to be around for that. So he's going to do and keep moving. And sometimes, as he continues to cut, we're like, God, you're making me a lot smaller than I was. And this one hurt. Oh, wait a minute. You're taking that person. But God, I cared about that person. And I love that person. And that person's been good to me. And he's like, I understand that. But trust me. But trust me, as I continue to refine, as I continue to cut, as I continue to polish, you will shine. But sometimes we have to be a smaller fragment than we intended. We have to be cut off and separated from the main piece so that people can see us. Have you ever been in a group of people and felt unseen? And sometimes it's literally, some people will say, I feel unseen in my job, and there's only 5 of us that work in the department. I feel unseen in my family, and we're a small family. I feel unseen in my own marriage. I feel unseen by my children. Y'all, you can be in a room of people consistently and feel unseen. Consistently, every day you could be in that room and feel unseen. But isn't it awesome that God wants to do all the work to make sure he purges and he prunes and he cuts and he transforms and he refines? Why? So that the brilliance that is you, the purpose that is you, and the fragment that he has created is seen. So we need to stop thinking about, the thing as, oh, I'm broken, I'm not whole, and I'm injured, and I'm damaged, and I'm not worthy, and I have no value, and all the things. God has made you invaluable. But the process sometimes doesn't feel good. Well, always doesn't feel good, y'all. Let me be honest. I haven't had to feel good at all, right? The process is challenging. The process is really difficult. But the thing that God wants you to understand is who you are in me will be seen. There's no way it's hidden. It will be seen. Oh my gosh. Broken it. So in closing, I want us to start thinking about the terminology we use. And again, this is my thoughts. I'm not saying you have to do this, but this is how I'm looking at it. Brokenness says I'm ruined. I'm damaged. I'm not worthy. Fragments say, guess what? I might have been broken, but the pieces of me remain. These pieces, they survived. Healing says God can and will and does work with what remains. He works with the fragment. And then restoration says what remains doesn't have to look like what I lost. Oftentimes we will sit in a place and we're like, I lost so much. I lost so much. I lost my friends. I lost my job. I lost my relationship. I lost my self-respect. I lost my standing in the community. I lost all these things. But God works with, he restores, he replenishes all the things. But I want you to not be looking for him to do a copy and paste of what was before. Because oftentimes when he's separated a thing, when he has caused you to be and function as a fragment, he wanted to remove you off of something or out of something that he never intended you to stay in. But we often so desperately want to have that thing back. We want to have the way people view us back. We want to have the way that people talk about us, the way we've been accepted, the way that our bank account looks, because I understand that one too, right? We want to have all those things back. And God's like, I will take care of you, but it may not be the way that you're thinking, and it may not be the way that you had before. And I don't want you to try to plug and play yourself into what you came out of, because I ordained you to come out of that thing. What I have for you is better, because the latter days will be better than the former. That's his word. So we have to remember that when we are going through a season like this diamond season, where we do have moments of feeling broken, and we have these moments where we look at ourselves and the fragment of us that remains, and we think of ourselves as useless, we think of ourselves as damaged, and God's like, no, I took you off of a thing so that I can then glorify you by putting you through this process, through this season, where you will be seen in the glory that I am bestowing through you. My glory will be seen and will shine through you. We have to just accept that God is in control. He is in control. For I know the plans I have for you. Oh Lord, I know the scripture, but sometimes I wish I could phone a friend just to get a sneak peek about the plan. Lord, can I get a schematic? Can I just look at a blueprint with one eye open? Maybe. Because I feel like sometimes that would invigorate. But God is asking for us to trust him in this season and in everyone that follows. God, I don't like this season. I don't understand this season, but I trust you. All right, with that is what he asked for me to share today. And I'm trying to stick to saying what he said and not saying what I want to say. I appreciate you all so much. I've been doing a lot of work on my diamond season information, materials. You'll hear more about some of that soon. I appreciate so much of your support on this platform, on TikTok, and just me in general. I ask that you continue to pray for me, that God continues to do what it is he is doing in this season. I ask that you continue to pray for my clarity, my wisdom, and my love for myself, because that has been something that the enemy has absolutely been trying to attack in the past few weeks, few days, I guess I could say. Yeah, so just keep your girl in prayer. I appreciate you. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and extend to yourself first, and then to me, your girl, a measure of grace. I will see you next week. Season 3, episode 8 of Sipping Tea with Stacey T. And thank you guys for trying to figure out the old one and the new one. And again, the enemy was trying to make it so I was discouraged because it wasn't starting. I started a new one, and here we are. So thank you guys so much. Have a blessed rest of your week. Bye, guys.